Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, The Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 radio stations across our great state of Michigan. And as always, so glad to have you along with me as we celebrate a 4th of July weekend. Can you believe that it is indeed the 4th of July? The weekend, right? It's a cliche when you say time flies, but it does fly. And the older I get, the more it flies. And I had a birthday last week, so I am older, so time is flying faster. Oh, but it is nice, I think it's nice that it also feels like maybe Mother Nature has finally caught up with the calendar in that I feel like we have more summertime weather now, a better summertime weather pattern, maybe a few more southwest winds, a little less northeast winds, or at least for these few days. I had to deal with a pretty good northeast wind on our last Wednesday Night Live. Actually, by the time you hear the show, it'll have been a week and a half ago. Out there with Mr. Angler Quest Brad Dupuis. We fished out of the Linwood Beach Marina. I went out there with Brad on his new 2025 Pro Troll, big 26-foot beautiful boat. And man, these things are indeed beautiful. From a distance, you might not be able to tell the difference between the previous version and the new model, but when you get on them and look close, they're a beefed up boat, and they're quite a bit stronger, more stable, more comfortable. I really like them. So I was out there with Brad. We had 2 guests along with us. Bill Hahn of Jay's Sporting Goods. Bill is the buyer for the hunting department at Jay's. If you go into Jay's Sporting Goods in Clare or Gaylord or online, and you look up a hunting-related product, Bill is the guy responsible for bringing it into the store. So he's kind of a pretty big deal. And he's a really, really nice guy. So Bill was with us, as well as Rich Krazan of Killer Food Plots. Now, Rich had just come off about a month-long dawn till dusk season of getting food plots, and he was ready to go fishing, and we had a great time. As I was looking around the boat, I'm thinking, Michigan-based, family-owned, right? Brad Dupuis, Angler Quest Boats, Rich Krazan, Killer Food Plots, Bill Hahn, Jay's Sporting Goods. There's something about, at least for me, in my mind, it's not really a formal business model, but it's something that God kind of put in front of me a few years ago and has worked out very well, and that is to partner with Michigan-based family-owned companies. We have this common mindset. We have this common way of looking at things. You know, I have worked with and had the opportunity to work with other companies that weren't such a good fit. These big corporate conglomerates, some of them based down south, and it's just like, you know, they're good people, and they're good companies, and they're good products, but it just doesn't feel right. I mean, they have a different culture, and forgive me for saying this, a Southern accent. All right, there's nothing wrong with a Southern accent, right? But immediately I know we don't share the same, well, we share a lot of the same things, but we're not in sync in a lot of ways. So Michigan-based family-owned companies is my sweet spot, and I love working with those companies. Anyway, going back to the northeast wind, when we left Linwood Beach Marina, about 4:15-ish, there was a little bit of a northeast wind. The big old Angler Quest just got up on top of the chop and ran out about 6 miles. I'll tell you right where we were. We were west-northwest of the spark plug in about 21, 22 feet of water. No, Mark, I can't. And I'm just responding. Turn it up on your end, Mark. I'm just responding to a comment on a live stream. And Brad likes to run jets and spoons. So when we got out there, it wasn't bad. So, we ran uphill, upwind, turned around and trolled downhill, downwind, putting out jets and spoons. He is so good at that. He is a master at that. And I got some nice video. In fact, I posted it on the Facebook page and my Instagram feed of a double with Bill Hahn and Rich Grizan and Brad netting the fish and our big fish of the night. I think it was 25-inch fish. So that was fun. But then it started to build. And by the time 7 o'clock rolled around where we do the Wednesday Night Live, it was rocking pretty good out there. Now, the Angler Quest can take it. We could all take it. But it just made it a little bit harder to do a live stream, especially with the way that northeast wind was cranking. And I was saying just a few minutes ago, again, on this live stream, that when you look at the fact that I can go live on a live stream from 6 miles offshore on Saginaw Bay using nothing but my iPhone is a pretty amazing technical achievement. Because it used to be back in the day when I was working in broadcast TV in the news department, if I wanted to go live, it had to be me, a videographer, and a live truck on location, and they would microwave the signal back to the station where it would travel down the lines, down the wires, into the studio where you would have a director, a technical director, a producer, an audio person, and then I could go live. So the fact that I'm even out there using just a phone is pretty cool. However, that northeast wind did wreak havoc with me. It was blowing so hard there for a while that it was I had a hard time, people had a hard time hearing what I was saying. And because I couldn't see my comments, when people are saying, hey, we're having a hard time hearing you, I didn't realize that, and maybe I could have adjusted my position into the wind or whatever. But anyway, the gist of it is we had a wonderful night on Saginaw Bay. We caught a whole bunch of fish with some very, very good people. Because I did have a birthday here this last week, I think I've been doing a little more introspection, maybe a little more thinking about the big picture things in general than I normally do. I was thinking about my experiences in the outdoors here in Michigan in past years, and I'm going back a while now to when my dad was still here. About this time of year, we'd be doing a lot of fishing over on Lake Michigan for salmon. I have not fished salmon since he's been gone, and that's been several years now. And it wouldn't be the same, I think, without him, that it was something we did together. But I'm thinking about salmon, and I'm thinking about how that fishery is just getting ready to fire up right now. What a wonderful resource that is. Saginaw Bay walleye, Lake St. Clair muskies. This is a wonderful state. It's a very interesting state, isn't it? And this whole mindset of the shared outdoor experience, and I hate to be too cliche, and I in some ways I hate the word community, because some groups of our world these days have used community in a way that I don't relate to, but I think it does make sense. Our community, our group, our friends, our family members of outdoor enthusiasts, people who have this passion to hunt and fish and shoot and trap, it goes way back. Way back. And we need to, in my opinion, do whatever we can to ensure that this tradition continues. What does that involve? Getting people involved. Portraying ourselves in a positive manner. Not being stupid. Not doing dumb things. Not going on social media and holding up pictures of bloody fish and standing in front of bloody deer and bragging about it. You can still share those pictures. Just do it a little more discreetly, with a little more intelligence. It doesn't mean you're caving into the antis. Not at all. It just means that you are using their own tools against them. And whenever I can have an interaction with a hardcore anti, I love that, because they're just so stupid. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, after the break, Nick Grillo. Speaking of Michigan-based family-owned companies, Michigan Brand Meats. I saw a video of Nick Grillo over on Lake Michigan. He wasn't salmon fishing. He was fishing for lake trout. And he was jigging for lake trout. And Nick had his drone in the air, and he had underwater video. And it just looked so cool. So Nick's going to be with us to talk about that. Also, I was at a softball tournament. I've spent a lot of time in the softball field with my granddaughter Addison lately. and I was starving. So I walked into a party store down there, and I found my new favorite snack, and it happened to be a Michigan brand. So we'll talk about that too. Then Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews talks about their big outdoor weekend coming up. Also, this most latest issue of the Woods and Water magazine. In our second hour, this guy he's an icon. He's an expert. His name is Mark Romanack of Fishing 411. We're going to talk trolling and more, and this guy knows it inside and out. Then Justin Tomei of MUCC. I want to talk to Justin about a couple of things, including the fact that Ted Nugent is on their most recent podcast, which I think is interesting because Nugent's had some bad things to say about MUCC in the past. And speaking of the Motor City Madman, he is on in hour number 3 with me this week. Now, Ted is on in reference to his comments in Lansing recently in front of politicians there about the DNR and the NRC. I want to talk with him about that. Also, again, I'm curious about his relationship with MUCC. Is he? I don't want to say is he backing down because Ted never backs down. But is he trying to make nice with MUCC? I hope so. I'm a big fan of MUCC. And then we'll wrap up the hour with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. That's all coming up this week right here in Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery. This show is indeed called Outdoor Magazine. My website is MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I would love to hear from you. It's going to be a really good show, and I'm glad you're with us. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Tawas on WIOS 1480 AM 106.9 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on WKNW 1400 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by VersaSkins. Michigan-based, family-owned VersaSkins. Kind of a theme there, eh? Just change your skin for the season you're in. Company owner Paul Perone has come up with a great concept. Why buy a bunch of different sets of hunting clothes when you can buy one good quality set? Snap on, zip on, an outer shell of a different camo pattern if you need big sizes, 4, 5, 6X, which you know are very, very hard to find. VersaSkins can help you out if you are a saddle hunter. VersaSkins can help you out there as well. If you go to the website, versaskins.com, that's versaskins.com, or go to Amazon.com and use the promo code, and look for VersaSkins brand. You can find them there. VersaSkins, just change your skin for the season you're in. Michigan-based family-owned companies. Is there any company that represents that more? I got to take a drink of coffee. Michigan-based family-owned company, Nick Grillo. Nick, I'm going to bring you in here a little bit earlier, right? How you doing, buddy?
Good, Mike. How are you doing? Sounds
good.
Like you got a little frog in your throat at the moment, huh?
Yeah, I appreciate you bailing me out here.
I could start. Yeah, I can ramble on for a little bit. Yeah, no worries there.
No, it's good to have you with us because I value your partnership, and I appreciate your friendship.
Same here, Mike. Same here.
I saw, though, that you were on a recent fishing adventure on Lake Michigan and had to bring you in to talk about that. Tell me the details.
Awesome, yeah. Well, first off, as you know, we have our own family business with Michigan Brand, and that's obviously a passion for us to make some awesome smoked meats and to provide product throughout the state and everything. But as you know, and I'm sure some of your listeners have heard, one of my main passions is hunting and fishing. Of course, I love to be outdoors. And these last couple of years, one of my favorite things to do is to go lake trout jigging. And I know you've talked about it a few times on the air, and you've had a few guests and everything. And I've had some good experiences with it. I've had some tough experiences with it. But this weekend, man, that was one of the best trips I've ever had. It was amazing. It was.
Well, tell me about that, because when I think of fishing for lake trout, I think of trolling. Why? I mean, first of all, how did you get started in jigging? How do you do it, and where do you go?
Yeah, so as you know, like you said, lake trout, a lot of people troll for them. You pick up a lot when you troll for salmon and everything, which is totally fine. It's fun and all. But me, these last couple of years, I've been liking to get the rod in my hand and to cast and do a lot of jigging. And especially for the lake trout, they're such a fun fish. They're so aggressive. They fight hard. And to me, they taste great. So we always keep a couple, but we release a lot of them. And this weekend, we did a lot of catch and release. We caught some big ones. So we went out on Lake Michigan. We made it about 12 to 13 miles out.
Wow.
And we were on like a steep drop-off is what we were. So obviously Superior and then obviously Michigan and even Huron, there is structure, don't get me wrong. But where we were fishing, there wasn't a lot of like structure areas, but there was steep drop-offs. So I'm talking from about 80 foot to about 150 to 210 was like the deepest we got, within maybe only like 100 to 200 yard stretch where it just dropped right off. And these lake trout were sitting on the edge and on the drop-offs. And we were finding them from anywhere from 160 to, like I said, that 90 range. They were kind of spread out, but they were stacked in there. So we went in with 2-ounce Jonah jigs. And I know you've had Larry on your show before. And I got Jonah jigs a couple years ago when I started jigging for kings. And we've jigged with Bob from Central Coast Angling, as you've had him on your show before. And that's where I first got to see Jonah jigs in action. And we caught a couple kings with Bob, and it was a riot. So I bought some Jonah jigs myself, and I actually, even though these were king spoons, these are what I was using for the Lakers, and they were just hammering them. It was, I mean, we had some drops where they weren't even hitting the bottom. They were hitting them 10, 20 foot up from the bottom. We were seeing them on our 2D scan right below the boat. And then your line would just go slack, and we know that obviously the fish grabbed it on the way down. It was awesome.
Were you out of Manistee or Frankfort or what?
Yeah, we were up north. Yep. We were actually out of Leland.
Oh, way north.
A ways out.
Yeah.
Yep. And we were a ways out there, like I said. We could still see shore and everything, don't get me wrong. But we were, like I said, 12, 13 miles was like the farthest we made it out. And, oh, man, I could go on about this story, but long story short, our Minn Kota trolling motor actually broke on the base, like the bracket that holds it onto the boat, snapped right off, and the trolling motor went flying into the water. As it was in gear, we were using it to anchor up, obviously. We saved it. Luckily, we were able to grab the power cord and pull it up. So that made it real interesting because just like walleye jigging, you want to be vertical for these lake trout. So, and instead of 20, 30 feet, you're down there 150 feet sometimes, or even more. So with the wind and the waves and everything, we were trying to stay vertical with the big motor, getting our baits down there. So it was pretty fun, but it was a lot of work on top of trying to just pay attention to fishing. So
before you lost your bow mount, you were using your bow mount to help you position so you could keep these jigs as vertical as possible. And when you're fishing that deep, even with a 2-ounce weight, when you're fishing that deep, that would be a chore. Now you lose your bow mount. You're trying to use the big motor. So do you have the stern into the wind, the transom into the wind, or how are you doing that, Nick?
Yeah, so we actually played with it a couple different ways, and we found the best way was actually we were putts in with the big motor until we found the fish on the 2D, and usually that's what we did is we would mark them on our 2D scan below the boat. We have a hummingbird on the boat, and then we would back up onto them and then turn the anchor setting on our trolling motor. So this time we kind of did the same thing where we would drive over them, but we would go about 50 yards past, maybe not that far, but something like that. And we would turn around so our back was to the wind. And then we would just hit in reverse every, couple seconds, every 20 seconds, maybe at the most. And as we were dropping our lines, and then we would watch our lines to stay down there and just try to pay attention to if they were getting pushed ahead or behind more, and we needed to put a little more gas in reverse. And we were actually able to keep the boat pretty straight. the tough part was when we hooked onto these big fish, and then you're worried about fighting the fish, but then your boat starts drifting away, and then you had the added pressure of being drifted away too. So we actually did lose 2 big fish that way, and it's like, darn, you know. But,
so
man,
you were unless you found an aggressive fish that hit you on the drop, you were actually bouncing these spoons off the bottom.
So a lot of times, you know, with live scope, you can watch your jigs. We were using our 2D, so every once in a while we would see our jigs dropping, but for the most part we didn't. So yeah, we would drop until we hit water, and then we did 3, 4, 5 cranks off bottom. And even on our 2D, you could see where fish came up to your jig. And lake trout are super aggressive, where you want to pull the bait away from them a lot of time. So sometimes as soon as we saw them coming up, we would just reel, and not even jig, but just reel to pull it away from them. And after 5-10 seconds, they would be chasing it, and then they would smack it. And you might bring them 30 feet off bottom. And we got quite a few hits like that. It was really intense. And every fish was big. We were on some big fish. We weighed a lot of them. We had a couple over 14. The biggest we got was a 16-pounder. But, yeah, we had a lot of 12 to 14-pounders and a couple in that 14 to 16 range. It was awesome.
And lake trout sometimes don't get the respect they deserve, but it sounds to me like these fish were putting up a pretty good fight.
Oh, they sure were. We were just using our walleye jigging tackle, and we beefed it up a little bit with the braid and the fluoro leader, and we were actually using a 12-pound clear fluoro leader, and we tied it direct to our braid using a double uni knot. So that way there was no swivels or anything. And we, you know, Lake Michigan is so clear. So we went about 5 foot, maybe 4 to 5 feet of a leader. And I think that helped a lot, where they couldn't see the line and everything. And yeah, it was just a riot. We were using white jigs that had like a little strip on of reflective tape. And like I said, the Jonah jigs. And, yeah, they were just bouncing.
No minnows, no minnow heads, no live bait, just the Jonah jig.
Correct, yep. And I know a lot of people use it for ice fishing and stuff. I've never really tried for summer fishing or spring fishing like this on the big water, but I've always just used tackle like this. And, you know, they're just such an aggressive and hungry fish, you know. Wow. If you get the right thing in front of them, they'll smack it. It was fun.
And to make the experience even better for me watching it from the outside, you documented this. You had drone shots, you had underwater shots. Nick, you're turning into quite a videographer.
Yeah, thanks. As you know, I like to do it for fun. I don't have like a regular thing where I do every month or every couple weeks I come out with a video. It's more or less just when kind of the opportunity presents itself, and I feel like taking all that extra time to set up the cameras and document it. I like to do a couple YouTube videos here and there. So I've done that for my bear hunts and the turkey hunts, and, you know, fishing, I haven't really messed with it too much, but I'm like, yeah, I got to make a video or two on fishing, you know? So I'm actually editing the video right now. So that's like you're talking about. I sent you a couple of clips of it. And
yeah,
cool. That was kind of my goal, was to get a shot of the drone in the air of me jigging and hooking one. And luckily,
and you did it.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, you are a hardcore outdoorsman. I love that. Stand by, Nick. I got to take a break here, but when we come back, I want to talk more about this. I want to talk more about your outdoor passions and cravings in general. And then we've got to talk about a text I sent you last week about how I discovered my new favorite snack. And it's a Michigan brand snack, believe it or not. And it's I think I like it even better than the world famous Mike Avery Outdoors Hunter Sticks. I know. It's blasphemy. Anyway, we'll take a break here. When we come back, more with Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats. Their website is michiganbrand.net, michiganbrand.net. If you go there and use the promo code Mike20, you can get 20% off your entire order. Also, there's Michigan Brand is all across the state. If you're wondering where your nearest retailer is, go to the website michiganbrand.net. Put in your zip code, and Michigan Brand has a store locator button there to help you find your nearest source for Michigan Brand products. michiganbrand.net. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Lansing, WILS 1320 AM, and in Marquette, north of the bridge, WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Seaboing Harbor Marina, where you can find a boat launch, slips, fish cleaning station, and a bait shop. If you fish the east side of Saginaw Bay, you need to check out the Seaboing Harbor Marina. Beautiful facilities, very close to the fishing grounds on the east side of the bay. You can check them out online at seaboingharbor.com. Also on Facebook, again, East Side Saginaw Bay Anglers. Check out Seaboing Harbor, the website seaboingharbor.com. Also on Facebook, too, by the way. Talking now with a good friend of mine, Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats. Nick is an avid angler. This time around, he was not on Saginaw Bay. He's up on Northern Lake, Michigan, jigging for Lakers. What a cool experience, Nick. And then you document it all on video. Where can people find that when you're done with it? Where do you post your stuff?
So I did make a channel, and it's called My Nick Outdoors, and My is spelled with like Michigan, M-I.
Oh, nice.
So it's My Nick Outdoors. And like I said, I'm not really doing it to be like a professional YouTuber and all that stuff, but I do like it. It's fun. And I know you and me have talked personally about it, how you still enjoy it even to this day after doing it your whole life.
Yeah.
And it is fun kind of putting videos together and the editing process, and especially when everything comes together and you just know it's going to be something fun like this to share with everybody. It's I like it.
Well, and you captured a wonderful, from what I've seen so far, wonderful images of your Northern Lake Huron lake trout jigging trip. I got to tell you too, Nick, I sent you a text here last weekend. I was downstate for a softball tournament for my granddaughter Addison. Addie, as we call her. I won't tell you the nickname I have for her privately. She would not appreciate that anymore. But I left the ballpark and I didn't have breakfast and I was really hungry and I didn't know what I was looking for. So I stopped by a gas station there, walked in, and they're greeting me as I walk in the door is a big rack of Michigan brand products. And I see this package of hunter sticks and cheese. And I thought, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I think I have a new favorite snack, Nick.
Yep, that's a real good one. The Jack Snacks, right?
Yeah.
That's the one you had?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you did send me a picture, and that was the Kobe Jack cheese, if I remember right.
Yep.
So so both of them, we have two different kinds right now, and they're both made with venison snack sticks. And we have one that has Kobe Jack cheese, and we have one that has pepper jack cheese in it. So if you feel like getting a little spicier, you can get the pepper jack one. So
well, pepper jack is actually my favorite cheese. I didn't see that one there. I would have grabbed that one, but that's a great combination, Nick.
Really? Nice. Yeah, it is. So what we do is we cube up the cheese and we cube up the snack sticks, obviously, and then we throw them all in that package. So you get a little bit of both. You get some cheese chunks and you get some snack sticks. And like you mentioned, it is a perfect road snack like that.
Oh,
having your cup holder or whatever and just grab a piece of both, or like you said, have it at the ball game, throw it on the boat.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're going to do that sometimes this summer. And we'll have to do that
very soon we're going to do that, Nick.
Snacks.
You can count on it. When I look at Michigan Brand, and just since I started working with you, how much you folks have grown. It's a great story.
It is. I don't like to brag too much, but it is something to be proud of. I mean,
yes.
We're over 550 locations just in Michigan alone, and we have quite a few out of state too. We have a lot of distributors that take our product out of state, but as far as internal in our state, we have anywhere between like 5 to maybe 8 drivers a day that are on the road. And sometimes we go, once a week we go all the way up to Mackinac City. We go over to Grand Rapids. We go down to Detroit. We go up to Traverse City. We even go all the way up the Leelanau Peninsula, up to Sutton's Bay and Northport. So we're kind of, all over the state every day. And it seems like every about 2 weeks, we're getting calls from multiple accounts that are saying, hey, either I heard you on Mike's show or I've tried your product. So it's like, I don't like to make it sound like I'm bragging, but it is pretty great because it's mostly just people trying our product and hearing the good reviews to say, hey, I want this in my store.
Oh, that's wonderful. And also, too, I think about this of events coming up. I think the Grillo family is going to have a Michigan brand team at the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors charity golf outing, Nick?
Correct. Yep. We're going to be up there again for another fun year. Might not put any score on the scoreboard so we don't embarrass ourselves, but we'll be there having fun.
That's the same way we were.
We gauge how good we do at golf on how many balls we lose that day. So, yeah.
Oh, if that, I didn't know that was the new standard, because if so, I'm having a spectacular summer.
There you go. Yeah, you're getting better, huh?
I'm getting better. All right, Nick, I will look forward to seeing you and the Grillo clan there. Grillos are, you guys are a first class family. And I appreciate the fact that you've chosen to partner with me, and the friendship between you and your dad and Joe and everybody has just been wonderful. So thanks for working with me. Thanks for documenting that trip on Northern Lake Michigan for jigging lake trout. I'll look forward to seeing that. The website again, michiganbrand.net, michiganbrand.net. And Nick, hey, listen, we'll be seeing each other very soon.
Yep, thank you, Mike. And I'll be sure to share that video, and if you could post it and
I
we
will
can share with all your fans and everybody, that'd be great.
As soon as you get that done, you send me the link. I will be happy to do that. In the meantime, go to michiganbrand.net. Check out the store locator button. Of course, the Mike Avery Hunter Sticks and this new venison stick and cheese package is just, like Nick said, it's the perfect snack. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we'll wrap up this first hour with Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Carroll on two stations, WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM, and north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Angler Quest headquarters. Check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. Great facilities, great location, great people. What more can I say? linwoodbeachmarina.com. Another group that I have nothing but good things to say about, the folks at Woods-n-Waternews, Michigan's premier outdoor publication. They've been around for a long, long time. And why is that? Because they do a great job. They have their finger on the pulse of what's going on in the outdoors here in the great state of Michigan. Plus, every year, they put on the show of all shows, the big outdoor weekend. It's the first full weekend after Labor Day. Tom Campbell, one of the people behind the outdoor weekend, and also their monthly issues. I think, Tom, we find you up north on vacation, but I know you're never really on vacation, are you?
That's right. Exactly, Mike. We went through the emails this morning already, but yeah, it's great. It's great talking to you, and I appreciate those nice words, Mike. That's always nice to hear.
Well, and it's easy to say nice things about Woods-n-Waternews. Look, lately I've been talking with your nephew, Keel, but I thought, you know what? It's time to check in with, one of the old guys once again. Isn't it nice to have that young influence in an operation organization that's been around for a while?
Is so important, Mike, and it's so important in our pages of the Woods-n-Waternews too. We're always trying to get that new young writer, and we've picked up a few, and it's so great to see. You know, it's amazing how they got a little different perspective, different style, and it's great to see. And keep that great information going, keep promoting the outdoors in Michigan and the hunting and fishing aspects. So, yeah, we need that young blood.
Oh, we definitely do.
Mine's getting really old.
Well, aren't we all? But
tired.
but our lifestyle in general. I mean, it's old white guys who are kind of aging out. We got to get more people, more younger people, different groups involved.
You're so true, Mike. Yeah, we've been, especially with the outdoor weekend you talked about. We bring in these legends and these people that have incredible skills at all different things, and then we step back and one of them passes away before the next show, and we're going, who's replacing him? We got to find somebody to replace him. And so keep that going. And Yeah, like I said, we're finding some, and I think some are finding their way back to us. So it should be great in the future.
Is the outdoor weekend, I mean, obviously it's all locked in. You're pretty much ready to rock, good to go. Are there still openings if people vendors want to be a part of this? Can they, Tom?
Yes, absolutely, Mike. We've talked before. We'll go out of our way. We'll move some things, rearrange some things. We'll try to get anybody that wants to come. We'll try to get them a good spot and be a part of that event, because it has grown to be such a fun event, and we wouldn't want anybody to miss it. So we will work with them for sure.
You say give them a good spot. I don't know if there's a bad spot there, right? I mean, you bring so many people through that venue. If somebody wants to be a vendor at your event, they're going to get their company, their service, whatever, their product in front of an awful lot of Michigan outdoor enthusiasts.
That's exactly right, yes. And then the fairground setup has made that a lot easier for us, too. We've got nice walkways that can keep everything connected. So that part of the show is fantastic. And we appreciate that, and we're looking for good things for 2025.
Well, I've told you this before. You have locked in the single perfect time slot to have a show like this. Any later, you're into the fall hunting seasons. Any earlier, people are still thinking summer. I mean, I don't know if this was intentional years ago or if you just stumbled into it, but good job. I mean, this is the perfect weekend.
Appreciate that. Yeah, we appreciate that, Mike. Yes, very much. And it's nice now this year, too, that the Youth Fund is back a week. So that's even better. So we appreciate that as well. But it's a good thing.
How would somebody get involved, Tom?
So the best way they can do is probably either pick up the phone and call us, 810-724-0254. They can go to our website and see all our information. We've got two. They can go to the Woods-n-Waternews website, or they can go to outdoorweekend.net and see specifically Outdoor Weekend information on that site, and all the good numbers to contact us at our office and get in touch with us. And we'll help them out any way they want.
And there's still time to get involved, but don't drag your feet, I suspect, Tom.
That's right. Absolutely. You got it. Don't delay.
Outdoorweekend.net. Well, Tom, I know one of your favorite and most featured writers is Mark Romanack, and he's actually joining us in the second hour of this week's show.
Fantastic. Yeah, Mark is really featured in our July issue. He's been an opponent or been pushing lake trout fishing, and he's got a fantastic article right in the center of the section of July issue about modern lake trout jigging. So, once you're done listening to Mark, you can run to your favorite newsstand and pick up
lake trout jigging. This is kismet. I mean, in the first segment of the hour here, I had Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand Meats talking about jigging for lake trout. So it's all coming full circle.
You got it.
Tom
right,
Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews. Always appreciate your time. Woods-n-Waternews.com or outdoorweekend.net. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, as promised, Mark Romanack of Fishing 411 talking about, I thought trolling, but maybe more lake trout jigging. Then Justin Tomei of MUCC and this week's Ask Avery question. And I don't know if this is legit or not. Can you get a crop damage permit for rabbit damage? I don't know. We'll find out. Coming up in hour 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome. Welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 radio stations across our beautiful, great state of Michigan. And I say every weekend, really believe this. The best way to listen to this show, if you can, is on your local radio station. You get your local news and weather and sports, even your local commercials, your local ads. Maybe there's a sale or something you want to take advantage of. So if you can, please listen to the show on your local radio station. But if you can't, if your local station doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, or if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, isn't it nice to know that there's a podcast version of the show that is available? Now, podcast. I know you hear the word podcast all the time these days, and I get it. But there is a podcast version of the radio show that is available, and you can hear that on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It's on my Facebook page. And all of the usual podcast destinations like Amazon, Audible, Twitter, now called X, LinkedIn, Apple Music, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, Stitcher Player, the whole gamut, even on YouTube. I don't mean to talk bad about podcasting because I enjoy podcasting. It's just I sometimes get a little sick of everything as a podcast. Well, it's not. There are radio shows too. But again, I do like podcasts, and each month I do podcasts for example, Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest boats, and Killer Food Plots as well, right? Speaking of offshore, my guest coming up now has been on the Offshore Tackle podcast many times with me because he's worked with Offshore Tackle for many, many years. His name is Mark Romanack. Now, you know the name Mark Romanack. He is an icon in the outdoor world here in Michigan. When it comes to fishing, you think about people who have made an impact in not just the media world, but the world of tactics and techniques and products and gear and promotion. Mark Romanack has been right at the forefront of this. His Fishing 411 TV show, now working with his son Jake, is, I'm going to go out on a limb here, I think it's probably the best fishing show that I've ever seen. You take their video production abilities and combine that with their fishing abilities and their ability to be able to share information. There's nobody better out there than Mark Romanack, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Mark, welcome back, buddy. How you doing?
Mike, I'm doing great. So I'm an icon now. That's pretty cool.
Well, okay, yes, you are. You are an undisputed icon. You are working toward the legend status.
All right, I'll work. I guess that's better than being an emoji, huh?
The unfortunate thing about a legend status is I think we have to die before we can become a legend. So I think an icon is a good place to be.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with that. We'll stay right where we're at.
So how's your summer going, Mark?
It's been good. Of course, I'm sure you've talked to a lot of other fishermen. I don't remember a spring that was as windy or as cold as the one we just lived through. But now that summer has kicked in, it's wonderful, and I'm enjoying every minute of it because we sure paid the price back in March and April and May and early June. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, a lot of northeast winds, northeast. Now I feel like we got this southwest weather pattern. I mean, how does that affect you as an angler? Is it just the ability to get on the water, or is there something more?
Well, I think it boils down to mobility. I mean, when the wind is blowing, you can fish, but your mobility on the water is restricted. There's only so many places you can get to, and there's only so much, tenacity that we have for toughing out rough conditions. How far will we go? How hard will we look, so to speak? And so I love it when the weather is mild because I can put that boat on plane and go wherever I need to go and work as hard as I need to work to find fish.
Yeah. Today's boats, like your beautiful Starcraft, my beautiful Angler Quest, they can take more than we as anglers can, right? I mean, the boat can safely go just about anywhere, but how much do we want to take and how much do you want to fight the waves?
Well, I think that's really what it boils down to. And like I said, I use the word tenacity. Some people have more than others, but nobody likes getting beat up out there. And so when we have good weather, I think we're all in a better mood. I think we fish more efficiently, and I think we catch more fish. And not that you can't catch fish in tough conditions and bad weather, because you can, but it just it puts a lot of pressure on the human spirit.
nobody deals with more, I feel like, rough weather, and they have to go out there than the tournament guys. You're a former tournament guy. I have so much respect for those folks, but it's not anything I want to even remotely be involved in. I'm a fair weather fisherman. I don't want somebody to tell me, okay, there's a 4-foot chop, but you have to go out there at daybreak to catch fish. Those guys are pretty tough.
They are very tough. And back when I was tournament fishing, believe it or not, I used to actually enjoy when we'd have rough weather. Because it would take out a lot of the field. There were a lot of guys that simply just weren't prepared to fish in rough weather. And so I always felt that if you put your head down and you really ground through it, you would come up with a few fish and you would do well as a result of that. But these days, man, I tell you, when it's nasty out there, I would just as soon not go. And from a filming perspective, it's impossible. You know that probably as much as anybody. Holding a camera steady is a challenge on a nice day. It's nearly impossible holding a camera steady and getting level horizons when it's blowing and the waves are bad. So these days, from a filming perspective, we just try to avoid rough water every time we can.
Kind of a weird question, but how many fish do you have to catch on an outing to make a good, solid TV show out of that?
Well, actually, that's a question we get a fair amount. I would say on average, 10 to 12 quality fish makes a pretty good TV show, 22 minutes of content. But I would quantify that by saying it kind of depends on the species. If you're targeting king salmon, they take a long time. From the time they're hooked until they're landed, it takes a long time. So you could have a really nice salmon show with half that many. 6, 7 fish would be a great plenty for a salmon show. But if you're talking about yellow perch and you're putting them in the boat quickly, you might need 20 to make a decent show. So it kind of depends on what species of fish you're targeting. But on average, about 10 fish, 12 fish is what we try to shoot for.
Now, remind me, I've been out of the TV business long enough that I actually have forgotten this. Are you in the production phase now, meaning you're out shooting shows, or are you airing new shows at this point?
We are in production phase. We broadcast during quarter 1 and in quarter 2. So the shows appear originally in quarter 1. They repeat in quarter 2. And then in quarter 3, they're repeating again. Quarter 4, they're repeating again. But this is the time of year we're shooting most of our episodes. Then we do the majority of our editing in the fall, early winter for delivery in January, February, March, April, May, June, and it starts all over again.
Mark, you've been doing this for a long time now. I mean, how do you continue to come up with new content, new ideas, or do you just recycle old ideas and put a new spin on them?
Well, I think the new spin is kind of what it boils down to, Mike. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, there's only so many ways to put on a planer board. There's only so many ways to use a jig and catch a walleye in a river. And so I think the Outdoors Network and the outdoor industry in general, we just repeat ourselves. Every spring and April, you can expect that you're going to see people talking about, jigging and things like the Detroit River. It rolls around to summertime like we are in now. People are going to be trolling. And so, you kind of just roll with those punches. But, and technology helps a little bit because as we get new technology, that gives us new content. But really what it boils down to, Mike, is it is wash, rinse, repeat a lot in this industry. Yeah.
Well, and you bring up trolling. I mean, I can't think of trolling or talk about trolling without thinking about you, Mark Romanack, Precision Trolling. I mean, you are the man. Your Precision Trolling app is the troller's Bible now in digital form. You are a troller. You're probably the best troller I know. But if you have to rely just on trolling, you're kind of one-dimensional. I know you can go far beyond that if you want to, if you need to.
Well, I don't think anybody can deny that if you want to be an efficient fisherman, if you want to make the most of your time on the water, you probably ought to be trolling. You can put multiple lines out there, fish at multiple depths, fish different kinds of lures, different colors of lures. When it comes to just raw catching fish, I don't think anything is ever going to be more efficient than trolling. But that's not to say that other kinds of fishing aren't fun, and I enjoy other styles of fishing, and so we try to mix it up as much as we can. But if you really put my back against the wall and said I had to catch a fish today, I think I would be trolling.
We're talking with Mark Romanack of Fishing 411 TV. Their website is fishing411.net, fishing411.net. Got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show, but when we come back, I want to delve into this world of trolling, talk with Mark Romanack about the finer points, the subtleties, the nuances of trolling, how to be as productive and effective as possible. And of course, we got to ask him about how do you know how deep your baits are running, and why is that even a factor? Why do you care? If you just go out there and put a bunch of different baits in the water and put them at different depths, aren't you going to catch fish? Well, probably. If you're in a good water, you're probably going to catch fish. Anyway, we'll talk more about the concept of getting your bait to exactly the right depth and why is that important with Mark Romanack of Fishing 411, fishing411.net. Later in the hour, we'll talk with Justin Tomei of MUCC, and we'll wrap up the hour with this week's Ask Avery question. And it's a weird one. Can you get a crop damage permit for rabbits? You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold. WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. And you can hear us north of the bridge, way north of the bridge, in Iron Mountain, WMIQ, 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Killer Food Plots, Michigan-based family-owned Killer Food Plots. Their company owner, Rich Krazan, is really dedicated to giving you the best results you can get from your food plots. But you know what? I also found out he's a pretty hardcore angler as well. He joined us last week on Wednesday Night Live on Saginaw Bay, fishing out of Linwood Beach Marina. We were out there with Brad Dupuis, Mr. Angler Quest. Also joining us was Bill Hahn of Jay's Sporting Goods. But it was a lot of fun to get these guys out in the water and just kind of shoot the breeze and talk about a lot of different things. But one of the things that came up was commitment to product and commitment to reputation and commitment to customers. And Rich was talking about that, how he has a very strong commitment to his customers and he wants to give you the best results possible. Check out his website, killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. Now, I realize you're probably kind of in a food plot planting lull right now, but it's not going to be too long before it's going to be August and time to put in your food plots again. So keep that in mind, killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. Speaking of fishing, my guest right now, Mark Romanack of Fishing 411, fishing411.net. Mark, this whole fishing industry, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? I mean, in some ways it feels like it's a huge industry, but then you get behind the scenes like you and I are, and it's kind of a small group of people. I mean, the Deschanos, the Romanacks, the Averys, the Dupuis. It's kind of a tight-knit group, isn't it?
Well, it's relatively small, I would agree. And I think that, you look at how much money is spent in fishing. I mean, that's a pretty significant number. There's, depends on what report you read, but north of $4 billion, is generated in sport fishing just in Michigan alone. And so it's a relatively big number. But the number of manufacturers is relatively small, and the number of people that work full time in the fishing industry is very, very small. Yes.
Offshore tackle, the Deschano family, you've worked with those guys forever. You have been intimately involved in coming up with so many of their products. That's a very cool story.
Well, it is for me because they were the first company that I worked with professionally. I met Bruce Deschano many, many years ago in Buffalo, New York at a sports show. We quickly became friends and started working with Bruce and Nick very, very closely, develop a lot of different products over the years. And they're the real deal. I mean, those guys love to hunt and fish as much as you and I love to hunt and fish. They're out there participating all the time. And so they had a passion for developing products that was based on the fact that they were, what I'd say is, the word that I typically use is that they were enthusiasts. They actually go out and do it. And I think if you're going to make good products for this industry, whether it's in fishing or hunting or any industry for that matter, you have to be an enthusiast. You have to actually do what you're talking about to understand what it takes to make good products.
Along that line, how did the precision trolling concept come about?
Well, believe it or not, it is actually somebody else's idea, not my idea. People still think that that I'm the guy that came up with the concept. That's not true. The guy that actually came up with the concept was Dr. Stephen Holt. You probably remember Steve.
Sure.
He was my tournament partner.
Sure.
And it was Steve that came up with the idea. He had fished with a number of different charter captains and had noticed that they were, trying to replicate getting lures to certain depths by doing certain things like controlling their lead lengths and stuff. But it was, at the time, most of the people that were doing this were doing it with little or no knowledge of the variables associated with trolling. Well, Steve is not only a medical doctor, but he's also an engineer, just a brilliant man. And he sat down and thought about it for a little bit and came up with the idea that if you controlled the variables and then tested what was going on, visually testing things using scuba gear, and as it turns out, Steve was also a certified scuba diver, you could pretty well, control the variables as far as line diameter, lead length, trolling speed. You could control all these things, and you could visually look at lures underwater and see how deep they were going. It was Steve's concept. And we just took it to a much higher level.
Of the different variables involved in getting a lure to a certain depth, what's the most important, the single most important?
Well, I think probably lead length is the thing that dominates how deep a lure goes more than anything else. And certainly there are other variables associated with this. But lead length is easy to manipulate. You can make them short, you can make them medium, you can make them long, or anywhere in between. And so, obviously, the longer you let a lure out, the deeper it's naturally going to dive. The shorter you let a lure back, the shallower it's going to dive. And so it's super easy to control, and I think almost everybody that has any experience at all in trolling fundamentally understands that concept.
Is there a maximum line length you can let out, though? Is there a point where this all maxes out, or can you just go on indefinitely, but you just got to decide how much line out there you want to deal with?
Well, in the early days, we used to say that there was a point of diminishing return, and that's because everybody was fishing with monofilament back then. That was before we even had super braid lines as an option. And monofilament is very buoyant, and so and it's fairly large in diameter, and so it has a lot of resistance or friction in the water. So you get to about 200, 250 foot of line out behind the boat. Monofilament gets to the point where it's really not allowing you to achieve any more depth. There's just too much friction at that point, too much buoyancy. But then, technology got involved here, and super braid lines came available. Super braid lines are super thin, they're zero stretch, and guess what? You can put lures on super braids and let them way back further than 250 feet and still continue to get depth out of those lures. And so that point of diminishing return is not as prevalent with braided line. It becomes a point of practicality. If you let your baits back too far, you certainly can get them to depth, and you certainly can hook fish on them, but what's the likelihood that fish you hooked, you're going to be able to reel it all the way to the boat before it comes unbuckled and gets away? So to me, super braids, I rarely would suggest anybody go out further than 300, even though you can go further than 300 feet. And with monofilament, I clearly tell folks don't go any further than 200 to 250 feet.
Well, should we all be trolling with braided line now then?
Well, I mean, that's a personal choice. I'm not trolling with braided line for a lot of my applications. I'm still using monofilament for the majority of my trolling. And the reason for it is that it's affordable, very functional. You can afford to put it on every reel a guy might own. Has that right amount of controlled, stretch, durability. The abrasion resistance of mono is excellent. And so it has a lot of very positive, attributes, so to speak. But there's a growing number of people who have completely made the switch over to super braids. And for those people, I tip my cap. There's no reason why you can't in this day and age. There are some, what I would say, understandings you have to have if you use braid. And if you use braid, you're probably going to have aftermarket line releases for your planer boards, because braid will tear up releases that were designed for monofilament. You also could have to understand your rods need to be a little softer in their action, because braid has no give, so you need to have some kind of give in the system. But right now, I would say if I pooled an audience of 1,000 people and asked them what kind of line they're using for trolling, I'd say it's about 50-50, Mike. I'd say about half of them are mono and half of them are braid at this point in time.
Why is stretch in some cases, desirable when you're trolling? The stretch of monoline.
Well, a couple of things. For one, a little bit of stretch helps the planer boards work more efficiently. You don't inadvertently have the lines popping out of the releases and getting false releases you don't want. And then secondly, fish are pretty powerful. When they make a unexpected run, especially when it's close to the boat, if you don't have any give in your line, any stretch in your line, there's a very good likelihood the fish is simply going to tear the hooks free and escape. I can't tell you how many fish I've seen get away at the boat, primarily with braided line, because, boy, I tell you what, you're toe-to-toe with the fish. There's no give in the system. A big, powerful fish makes a strong run. Chances are, your drag is not going to be adequate, and, boy, bad things happen.
Is speed a factor in getting your depths deeper? Because at first blush, you might think, well, the faster I go, the deeper I'm going to push those cranks.
Not really. This is one of the things that we proved early on, is that before we even started testing crankbaits and started publishing data on it, we did the baseline information. Any good scientific study is going to have a baseline of data. And so we tested the variables to find out what was really going on. One of the first things we looked at was trolling speed as it relates to lure depth. And it kind of depends on what we're talking about here. If you're talking about a traditional crankbait, a flicker shad or a storm, thunder stick, or PWC, one of the baits that we're developing for Bill Lewis, all those lures float. In floating diving style lures, it really doesn't matter if you're trolling them 1 mile an hour or 3 miles an hour. They're going to go to the same depth relative to the lead length that you use. But if you talk about a lure that might sink, let's say you're a salmon guy and you're fishing Dipsy divers, obviously they sink. If you slow down, they fish deeper. If you speed up, they tend to rise in the water column due to increased friction on the device. So trolling speed as it relates to lure depth kind of depends on whether the lures are sinking or if they're floating.
So your precision trolling system, you have an app that you can look at this. You can pick out the specific bait that you're fishing, and it will tell you speed and depth and how deep your bait is going. Why is that important? Why do you want to know that?
Well, I think, again, this plays back to technology again. I mean, we have such good technology in the form of modern sonar that, we clearly can see fish. We can find fish. They simply can't hide with modern sonar. So when you're out there cruising around in your boat and you're starting to mark fish, you clearly can see at what depth levels they are. And so if you're marking fish consistently, say 15 down over 30 feet of water, you want your lures in that proximity, right? That's just common sense. You don't want to fish any further away from the fish than necessary. You want to get those lures down close enough that the fish are going to see them and react to them. So, clearly that's what precision trolling does, is it allows you to fish with confidence and know that your lures are going to run at exactly the depth that you anticipate they're going to run. So therefore you can put your lures close enough to the fish to get them to react.
Real quick before we run out of time, how do we get the app? Where do we find it, Mark?
Well, it depends on if you're an Android or if you're an Apple guy. If you're an Android guy, you're going to the Google Play Store. If you're an Apple guy, you're going to the Apple App Store. Just search Precision Trolling Data, and you'll see the options there that you can purchase.
Mark Romanack, you and I could talk trolling for hours, and maybe sometime we'll find a venue where we can do a podcast or something where we can do just that. Mark Romanack of Fishing 411, fishing411.net. Always appreciate your time, buddy. Let's stay in touch.
Will do, Mike.
Mark Romanack, again, icon in the fishing industry. Check out his website, fishing411.net. And, of course, the Precision Trolling app, the Troller's Bible, now in electronic form. If you're a troller, you want the Precision Trolling app. We'll take a break. When we come back, Justin Tomei of MUCC. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM 95.3 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Escanaba on WCHT 600 AM 93.5 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because our nature and your nurture. Let them create an outdoor getaway. in your backyard is as they have for me, small projects, big projects, maintenance, tree trimming, anything you need to keep your outdoor space looking the best. You could do it, right? I can do it, but I don't want to. I make a call. The folks from Reader come over. They spend 3 hours at my place, and I spend the day hunting or fishing. So it's like a no-brainer for me. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. They've been in business 60 years. That doesn't happen unless you are a top-notch company. I want to turn our attention now to the folks at MUCC, a group that I have partnered very closely with, and I have much respect and I support very much. Justin Tomei is one of the guys at MUCC, and he joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Justin, I suspect this time of year you just kind of put your feet up, kind of lean back, and just let the summertime roll, and you just go golfing and smoke cigars and go fishing. True?
I wish. It is a little slower, but it's not that slow.
So what is going on in your world this time of year, buddy?
Well, the legislature just left town for the summer, so that's the one most acutely related to my job. But the bigger, more exciting news is we got to talk to Uncle Ted last week.
You know, I wondered if that was going to come up. I'm glad you did. Now, this I find very interesting. I actually have Uncle Ted on, Ted Nugent, in the next hour. I thought, because I have heard Uncle Ted say some very disparaging things about MUCC in the past, I didn't know you guys were buddies. What's up?
Well, it came together pretty quick when he was in town last week for Lansing. But, I would agree. Ted Nugent and MUCC maybe don't agree on every single policy, but we do agree on is, conserving, protecting, enhancing natural resources and outdoor heritage, and youth recruitment, and just general hunting and fishing and trapping. And that's largely what we talked about.
I would love to see you guys make nice. Now, I take it he's on, let's see, by the time folks hear the radio show, has that podcast dropped yet?
It'll drop sometime the week of the 7th.
Okay. Well, that's going to be a good conversation. I can't wait to see that one.
It was so much fun. I told him at one point, I drove to D.C. with my then girlfriend, now wife, and a couple other friends, and we listened to his Love Grenade album on repeat, kind of to annoy my wife at the time. And I never thought then that I would get a chance to sit down and talk with him for an hour and a half about hunting and Fred Bear and, shooting bows. And it was really cool. And we had a very good conversation. And yeah, it's hard to argue that he's not a pillar of, or a pillar as an advocate for hunting and Second Amendment rights in Michigan, or the country for that matter.
See, that's just it. I mean, I have to fortify myself for the conversation with Ted with a whole bunch of coffee and Crystal Light here to make sure I'm ready, because you got to put yourself in a mindset to talk with the guy. But you cannot argue that the guy is probably doing more for shooting and hunting than just about anybody I can think of.
Yeah, it's him or Ranella they're both the top two.
Yeah,
and then after
good
that,
point.
It's up for debate. It's those two. So he's very high energy. It was a lot of fun. We had a really good conversation. I can't wait for people to hear it.
If we could just put a golf club in that guy's hands now, the world would be perfect.
I almost think it's too slow for him.
I think it is. Golf would be boring to him. But I'm looking forward to an event we have coming up here in a very few short weeks now, Justin.
Oh yeah, that is only 3 weeks away, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Golf outing in West Branch.
Yeah, get ready, buddy. No more slices. I want you to be in the fairway the whole time.
Oh, are we going to live in the world of make believe or real life?
Well, the real life it'll be a fun event for a great cause coming up Friday, July 25th at the West Branch Country Club, the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors charity golf outing to benefit MUCC's youth camp. Now, I want to make it very clear, this is not a generic fundraiser for MUCC, though I wouldn't be opposed to that. This is very specific to raise money for the youth camp to get kids involved in the outdoors. There is more noble cause in the world these days today, I don't think.
I don't think that's why I do this work. We had a great time last year, and this year's bigger and better.
Yeah, it is going to be bigger. I think we're going to have a full field. However, there is still room to get involved. If you want to play in the event and or help sponsor the event, go to mucc.org/golf, mucc.org/golf. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And the youth camp. I mean, how can you argue with raising money to get kids involved in the outdoors?
don't think you can. They come home shooting guns. They come home with hunter safety. It's a great program. I know they're having a lot of fun down there right now.
All right, Justin, I will look forward to seeing you at that event Friday, July 25th at the West Branch Country Club. I will look forward to watching or listening to the podcast with Uncle Ted. Again, he's on with me here in just a few minutes on the radio show, and I'm sure this whole relationship of Nugent and MUCC, we will delve into that a little bit more. But listen, I would love to see you guys partner up because it's two great forces to promote a great cause, and that is promoting the outdoors. It's a win-win. So, Justin, I appreciate your work on that. Appreciate your time, and we'll talk again soon. And I look forward to seeing you, buddy.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good one.
Justin Tomei of MUCC, MUCC.org. Check out their podcast. I am really enjoying this relatively new MUCC podcast. I love the format. I love the way these guys interact, and I love their guests. MUCC.org/golf. Again, if you want to be involved in the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing to benefit MUCC's Youth Camp, MUCC.org/golf. When we come back, we'll take a quick break here. We'll wrap up the second hour of the show with this week's Ask Avery question. It's an interesting one. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name is Mike Avery. I do appreciate you being along with us. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by the good folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. And I have to give a big shout out to the folks at the Security Credit Union Foundation. They have stepped up and they are a major sponsor of this year's second annual Mike Avery Outdoors Charity Golf Outing to benefit MUCC's Youth Camp. If you would like to get involved, again, go to the website mucc.org/golf to sign up. The website for Security Credit Union is securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way the Ask Avery segment works, this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. You can send me a question that you want me to answer directly or that you want me to pass along to somebody else. And this is exactly what John Ebenholt did. And again, the best way to get these questions to me is a good old-fashioned email. Send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. All too often, I get people sending me comments or questions in social media messaging platforms. Maybe I'll see them, maybe I won't. Send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, and that's what John Ebenholt did. And this one, and I got to be honest, I looked at this for a minute and said, is this like a real question or not? But we're going to give it a try. John says, I am a farmer and I get summer kill tags for deer due to what they damage in my fields. At one of my fields, there are at least 6 rabbits that have eaten a decent amount of soybeans. My question is, can the DNR give out licenses to kill rabbits out of season due to the damage that they have done in my one field? Thank you for your help. Well, I thought, well, I mean, if it's a crop damage permit, right? I mean, we normally think about deer. What about rabbits? Why not? So I reached out to a contact in the DNR because I don't know the answer. He says, this is a new one. He said, if they could show actual, they being John Ebenholt, if he can show actual substantial crop damage, then I'm sure wildlife would permit the trapping or removal of the rabbits. You'd have to have an awful lot of rabbits to do crop damage, right? So this is true. This is the case. John Ebenholt, you got your answer. If you can show significant, substantial damage to your soybeans, you get in touch. Same process, right? Same process you used for the Wildlife Division to come out and assess your damage, then they would indeed, or could indeed, there's no guarantee, right? You know this. They could indeed issue crop damage permits for rabbits. Now, this whole concept of crop damage permits has come up here lately. In the last several weeks, people talking about it. We've had some Ask Avery questions about this whole concept. The resource you own, farmers own the resource. the deer that live on the farms are not and this goes back to my thoughts on the youth hunt. Back when the youth hunt was going to be does only, I actually supported that because the youth hunt got a lot of negative pressure from people saying, I don't want them shooting big bucks. Well, they're not your big bucks. Just like the farmers, the deer who live on farmers' land are not the property of the farmer. Just like you have hunting property, you have lease property, you put in food plots, you own this land. This is your hunting property, right? You have bucks on this property that you have basically raised for the purpose of you to let them go and let them grow and let them be big and let them shoot the big bucks. The only wrinkle in this whole story is you don't own that deer. You don't own that deer unless you have an enclosure and they are separated from the outside and you actually paid the DNR for any deer that were enclosed. You paid them for those deer. If they are free-ranging, you don't own them. They're not owned by the DNR. They are owned by the people of the state of Michigan. So I was kind of excited about having a does-only youth hunt because I thought, well, that will take some of the social pressure off the youth hunt with the crybabies complaining about kids shooting their big bucks. It also teaches young hunters that a big old matriarchal doe is indeed a true trophy. And a big old doe who's got 4, 5, 6 years under her belt is a lot harder to shoot than a 1.5-year-old buck, right? A 1.5-year-old buck is the dumbest thing in the world, especially if you get him later in the season, get him during the rut. A 1.5-year-old buck has no concept of what's going on around him. Anyway, I digress. So, Mr. Ebenho, yes, if you can show that you have substantial crop damage from rabbits, you can get a crop damage permit. And thank you, John, for suggesting that question. And thank you to the folks at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. And thank you, Security Credit Union, for helping to support this year's Mike Avery Outdoors second annual charity golf outing. Again, if you want to be involved in that as a player, and there are still some slots, I think, or as a sponsor of that event, go to mucc.org/golf, mucc.org/golf. All right, we'll take a break for the top of the hour. I will prepare myself for the conversation in hour number 3 with Uncle Ted, the Whack Master, the Motor City Madman, Ted Nugent. Man, there's some things I want to talk to Ted about. First and foremost, his comments in the legislature last week about the DNR, the NRC, and more. That's coming up in hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Yater Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons, the Forward Corporation, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Hammond Drives and Equipment, Garber Chevrolet, the West Branch Visitors Bureau, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome. Welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 radio stations across our great state of Michigan. On a 4th of July weekend, Independence Day weekend, how does time fly so fast? And I always say this, the older I get, the faster time flies, and it seems like it is just flying on by. But you know, it is a pleasure, it is a blessing, it is an honor to be at this microphone every week talking about the great outdoors, the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan and occasionally beyond. I do what I can to promote this outdoor lifestyle because to me, it's special, it's sacred, it's beautiful. I feel it in my own family. My granddad hunted and fished. My dad hunted and fished. I hunt and fish. I have passed this on to my son and my daughters who hunt and fish, and now grandkids. And can I let you in on a little secret? I haven't publicly announced this before. I got a great granddaughter on the way. A great grandkid. Avery, how old are you? Older than dirt? And we're all hunters and we're all anglers. So for me, this is personal. But I also get the fact that this is something that's so special here to the people of Michigan. I do what I can, but my efforts pale in comparison to our guest this hour. You know him. Uncle Ted, the Motor City Madman, the Whack Master, Ted Nugent. Welcome back to the Outdoor Magazine radio show. How are you, my friend?
Well, thank you for that welcome, Mike, and it's a pleasure and honor, and I'm humbled to genuflect at the altar of science-based truth, logic, and common sense wildlife management, if we can find it. Michigan #1 outdoor radio show. You do a great job, and everywhere I go, people reference Fred Bear. They reference the history of their hunting, outdoor lifestyle in this wonderful, wonderful state of Michigan. But you really push the spirit, and you're promoting and celebrating. A lot of people say, I love the way you defend hunting. It doesn't need to be defended.
Yeah.
It's so perfect, you don't need to defend it, and you promote and celebrate it. Thank you for that, Mike.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that, Ted. That's very nice of you. But, the timing of having you on right now is very interesting because you're never a guy to just sit back and be quiet and let life go by. You like to take advantage of situations. Your recent testimony in Lansing got a lot of attention here, and God bless you for that. But I understand what you talked about, but I want to talk about why were you there? What was that group you were in front of, and how did you get, invited to that venue?
Yeah, people, there's some great Michiganiacs out there with us, Mike, that stand up for, and I mentioned it a moment ago, the truth, logic, and common sense of God's miraculous science. Nature is all boiled down to science, which all boils down to politics. So the great Ken Borton up there in Gray Lane, when we celebrated the unveiling of the Fred Bear statue, a big salute to everybody and the Fred Bear Day people. But Speaker Matt Hall and Jay DeBoyer, Kurt Vanderwall, Michelle Hoytinga, we have some real constitutional, conservative conservationists that represent the Republicans, real Republicans, constitutional Republicans in the once great state of Michigan. I say the once great state because it's just gotten so offensive and so ugly that I cannot find a hunting, fishing, or trapping regulation in Michigan that is honestly based on real-world science. And so I am bombarded every day of my life in a wonderful, emotional and sincere fashion, whether it's at the coffee shop or the gas station or the feed mill or at the sushi bar in Ann Arbor. People from every imaginable walk of life come up to Shemaine and I because they know I've got a big mouth, because the Founding Fathers wanted all of us to be just like me, suspicious of all authority and demand constitutional accountability from our elected employees. And I had to share the horror stories and the heartbreak from great conservation families in Michigan with people who are not only in positions of power, but many of which, especially, it hurts to say it, Mike, but the Natural Resource Commission, the Department of Natural Resources, the overall power-abusing government of Michigan has literally spit in the face of this great tradition and heritage based on the unlimited horror stories people abuse for not having a bow case zipped up when the bow case law had already been thrown out because it's so absurd. The guy's trying to kill some sandhill cranes, which is a migratory game bird, ribeye in the sky, but Michigan will let you shoot them if you have a piece of paper, but not consume them. Mike, that's immoral. If you waste a precious wildlife, that's immoral. And so the DNR and NRC has now plummeted into the toilet of immorality with their regulations. And I can go into detail, and I did that day. And I've got a lot of support from real Republicans and real sporting organizations. So we've got momentum, and I just hope my fellow conservationists in Michigan will get on board and voice their complaints to their state rep. They will listen to you, but you got to do it over and over and over again. And again, Mike, you know the list. Fred Bear initiated a quiet early archery season. The DNR spit on it. There's not an early archery season anymore. They want to kill more deer, but they won't let us use the methodology proven to increase the harvest. So I'm a hell raiser, and I'm proud to admit it.
Well, your thoughts on the DNR and the NRC are very well known, but you brought up something in your testimony there, and you went back to the situation where, I don't know if this was a lawsuit or if they actually charged you with this whole Russian boar, this feral boar thing. You know, is that what started your vendetta? Is this personal for you, Ted? Is because they came at you, you're going at them?
Well, you know, you mentioned a minute ago how dedicated you are to promoting the conservation heritage of Michigan and America. And it is personal. It's not just recreation. Certainly, we talked about it. It does recreate our spirit and our energy in the modern world. It's a critical healing power of nature. So, yes, it is personal, but the insane, arbitrary, punitive, capricious, nonsense lawsuit against me for having something that doesn't exist. Feral is the description of livestock that has escaped. I have a game preserve, and nobody has escaped. No pigs have escaped. And there's no such species, Mike, as a Russian boar. The only Russian boar is a male pig that lives in Russia. There's no such species. I don't have any Russian boar. A lot of them are sows. These DNR people are so stupid that they sued me, and it cost me a fortune to fight them. And I won because the judge had a sense of decency and justice, and he said, wait a minute, they're not feral, they're not Russian, and some of them are sows. So I finally won. But what kind of power-abusing punk would go ahead and reduce the opportunities in Michigan? If you don't like hunting high-fence pig operations, then don't do it. But you know, Mike, more outside money, more non-resident money comes into Michigan, more than any deer hunting or grouse hunting or squirrel hunting, which are all sacred. You use the word sacred. It is sacred. More money comes into Michigan, and more people come to Michigan from out of state to hunt the different high fence operations, the sanctuary, and the different big giant deer. And I'm not a fan of big giant GMO deer, but some people are, and I would never interfere with their decisions. And the DNR, they're counterproductive. The wolf is a liability. The sandhill crane's a liability. The dove is a liability. The black bear is a liability. The deer are a liability. The coyotes are a liability. Come on, guys. Put them in the asset column. That's respect.
I do think that it is way past time that we need to recodify this whole game law. And in fact, I've been talking about this, Ted, for the last several weeks, even before you and I, came up with the concept of this discussion. But I mean, there are way too many game laws on the books. If you are an avid hunter or angler, an otherwise law-abiding citizen, sooner or later you will break a fish or game law because there's so many of them and they're so complicated. It's like driving. If you spend enough time behind the wheel, sooner or later you're going to break a driving law. I wouldn't feel as bad about that as I would if I broke a fish or game law. We don't want that most of us don't want that on our record. We don't want to do that.
Well, it's an important point because, we were testifying against the weaponization of bureaucracies in the government. As I give you Donald Trump, all the charges against him were all made up. They say you can indict a bologna sandwich. That's the colloquialism in the Justice Department, which is searching for justice most of the time. But, people call me a game law violator because of Barack Obama and Eric Holder sicking their U.S. Marshals, their U.S. attorneys on me in California and Alaska, where I broke no laws. I had every license, every permit, the proper weapon, the proper location, the proper animal, and I put all my hunts and kills on film. and they went nuts trying to destroy my reputation. And some in our own hunting community are so stupid.
Ted, hang tight. You know how this works. I apologize, but I got to take a break. We're talking with Ted Nugent. His website, tednugent.com, tednugent.com. He made headlines again recently by testifying in Lansing. He had some bad things to say about the DNR, also the NRC. When we come back, more on that. Also, Ted's thoughts on MUCC. I thought those guys didn't like each other, but they just did a podcast. More coming up. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. You can hear us in Muskegon, WKBZ 1090 AM. And let's go north of the bridge. Let's go to Manistee, WTIQ 1490 AM, 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the company that makes that sound, right? That's the sound of my Rapid River knife coming out of my pocket. I always carry it. I carry a Uper every day. I just took this thing out of my pocket. That's the sound of that knife locking back open. I'm a huge fan of Rapid River knives, handmade by craftsmen in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. The new Mike Avery Signature Edition knife will be available anytime now, and that's a reminder that that is a fundraising project to raise money for vets and first responders. Proceeds from that knife are going to go to a group called Outdoor Driven, to get those people in the outdoors, to give them experiences to help them deal with the crap that they have to deal with in their jobs to keep us safe and protect us, and I do appreciate that. Also appreciate RapidRiverKnifeWorks.com, by the way, is a website, RapidRiverKnifeWorks.com. I also appreciate the fact that Ted Nugent is taking time out of his busy schedule to talk with me here on the Outdoor Magazine show. Speaking of tools to defend yourself and protect yourself, Ted, you walked into the state capitol with a gun on your hip. That should not have been a surprise. They let you in there, and then there was a little bit of a minor uproar after that. What's the story there? How'd that whole thing happen? Certainly you didn't try to sneak in there. We know that.
Well, Mike, my knees are really bruised because I constantly genuflect at the altar of self-evident truth, logic, and common sense and constitutionally guaranteed God-given individual rights. My favorites are the First and Second Amendment. I suppose I could just leave it there, couldn't I?
Yeah.
But bottom line is the threats against my life that have been going on for over 50 years because I stand up for conservation. Well, he murders innocent animals. We need to kill his family. They've actually said that to me.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, I took him into custody and introduced their face to Mr. Wall. I could tell you some great stories. But I've had threats against my life because I stand up for God, family, country, Constitution, law and order, good over evil, hunting rights, Second Amendment rights. So I've never been unarmed or helpless. I think that's an insane choice, especially today with the engineered recidivism and cultivated crime by our failed justice system. So I won't tell you if or what or when I might have had a firearm on me that day, but here's a fascinating point that I think sums it up. 98.5% of the Michigan State Police heroes, and they really are, these guys are warriors. They're some of the best law enforcement heroes in the world. 98.5% of state troopers in Michigan have a negative about their leadership. You know who doesn't like Ted Nugent? The leadership that the street warriors don't respect. So the street warriors that do respect me, I don't know how they didn't see I had knives and belt tools and pocket knives. I'm surprised I didn't have a machete on me that day. But I guess their metal detectors weren't working, and I don't think it would matter if they did. So when they told me to take my gun off and put it away, I took my gun off and put it away. But now they're pushing to make that a law. That was just a rule. I didn't violate any law. In fact, a law against me keeping and bearing arms would be an illegal law. I thought I would mention that on Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show. So there's a military term that rhymes with cluster crank that ensued. But ultimately, there was never an uproar. It was professionalism by the state troopers, and it was a moment of relationship with the very oath, the constitutional oath that the good troopers and the good law enforcement heroes of America adhere to. I happen to be one. I've been a sheriff deputy for 40 years. I've done raids with the FBI, the DEA, the Texas Rangers, and the U.S. Marshal Service. And I know what that adrenaline and what that danger is. I'm not claiming I'm a hero like those guys, but they did invite me on numerous raids in Texas, and I've been in the belly of that beast. So some idiot that would want to disarm Ted Nugent would be a bad guy.
Let's talk about you and MUCC, the Michigan United Conservation Clubs. Now, that's a group that I have partnered very closely with, and I don't agree with everything they stand for, but I really like what they're doing, and I'm trying to help those guys as much as I can. In the past, Ted, I have heard you make some very negative comments about MUCC, but then just last week you joined those guys in Lansing and did a podcast, and that's going to be dropped here next week. I'm looking forward to that. So what's the mindset there now, Ted, between you guys? You making nice?
Well, number one, if I saw my good friend, my blood brother, my soul brother, my threadbare backstrapping friend, Mike Avery, do something that I didn't agree with, I'd probably call you. I don't think we could stop being friends, but we would have a conversation about a disagreement, especially in the wonderful outdoor sports world. So I salute Amy Trotter and the people in charge of Michigan United Conservation Clubs. Let's put it this way, Mike. Everybody listening right now, if you want to be a force for good, join Michigan United Conservation Clubs and let them know what your family believes in regarding game management regulations and conservation. So everybody get, what is it, MUCC.com?
MUCC.org.
MUCC.org. Here's another one. I'm telling you, this is critical. HunterNation.org. HunterNation.org. We got the conservation families, licensed hunters, to vote in 2024, and look what we did. We did that. We got heretofore apathetic, non-participating hunters in America to vote their family values, and that's what's missing in Michigan. So if you're a member of MUCC and HunterNation.org, we galvanize sporting families to do their number one American responsibility, and that is vote for science-based conservation regulations. It's so simple, even the author of Wango Tango can figure it out.
Well, you bring up an interesting point, as you always do, because you are Ted Nugent. But, we as hunters and anglers and shooters and trappers in the past have been kind of quiet. It's like, don't bother me. Let me go out in the woods. Leave me alone. I don't want to get involved in politics. I don't care what they're doing in Lansing. I don't care what they're doing in Washington. Just leave me alone and let me do my thing. So we are, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, rugged individualists. But, man, and we still can be, but in a lot of ways, those days are over. We can't just sit back and expect that good things will continue to happen if we don't get involved.
If you're not voting your core conservation, constitutional, conservative values, you're not a rugged individual, you're a wimp. The reason the Joe Bidens and the Hillary Clintons and the Gretchen Whitmers get into positions of abusive power is because conservationists, we have the data. 58% of Michigan licensed hunters prior to 2016 had never registered to vote. But sometimes they're the loudest squawkers, aren't they? They complain the most, but you don't need to complain around the campfire. You need to complain to your elected employees, your governor's office, your DNR, your NRC, and you need to vote. HunterNation.org. We literally registered millions of hunters in those 7 swing states. And Mike, we won because the conservationists are constitutionalists, they're conservatives, and they know who to vote for.
HunterNation.org.
Really powerful. We got people on the phones. I did robocalls in every state, especially the 7 swing states. Texts, emails. We actually had boots on the ground knocking on doors, calling up Johnny Big and going, "Hey, Johnny, we see you've been hunting for 48 years, but you've never voted. Come on, man, let's do this."
Yeah, see, I'm not. I was not real. I've heard of it, but I didn't really know about it. I'm going to take a closer look at that. I got to ask you though, Ted. I mean, listen. At this point in your career, I think you're 77.
77 deer seasons.
77 deer seasons. So you've had a career. I mean, I was listening to you back in college. you were the source of many road trips and many wonderful evenings, and you've kind of been a musical backstop of my life for I don't know a long time now.
Well, thank you.
But you've been so successful. You don't need this stuff. You could sit back at your ranch in Texas, your place here in Michigan. You and Shemaine, you can enjoy the kids, the grandkids, the resources around you. Why do you keep putting yourself in situations where people give you so much grief?
You said it earlier, Mike. You're about to have a great grandchild. I'm about to have my 13th grandchild. And I'm going to have the greatest hunting season of my life this year, I promise you. I'm going to eat sandhill cranes. I'm going to have a great dove season. And I'm going to kill enough deer to mitigate the agriculture destruction, the slaughter on the highways. I'm going to push for proper science-based game management for my children and my grandchildren. We just wrapped up the 36th year of the Ted Nugent Camp for Kids nonprofit charity. And now we've got moms and dads bringing their sons and daughters to my children's camp. And the glow, the emotion, the celebration of the healing powers of nature that we have taught these young people for 36 years, that's what makes me do it. I mean, again, I'm an American. I have a moral obligation, a spiritual obligation to vote because there's a lot of flag-draped coffins as we celebrate Independence Day that gave me not only the right but the duty to vote for those constitutionally guaranteed God-given individual rights that those heroes of the military died for. How dare I not?
Yeah, well, and man, you're never going to hang that guitar up either, right? I keep hearing this is Ted Nugent's last tour, and it keeps coming up.
We're on the road right now. We're doing the Wisconsin State Fair here next week. And we're still doing gigs, but I have to be home every night. I don't tour because my dogs cry when I leave, and Mrs. Nugent needs me. But we're playing all across Michigan. We're playing Lexington, Saginaw, Ludington, Paw Paw, Detroit at Freedom Hill, August 31st. The last week of August, the best music, the best guitar tone, the best piss and vinegar in the history of the world. The music keeps me going, Mike.
Well, and I did see that Saginaw show. Now, unfortunately, it's on a Wednesday night. I usually do Wednesday night live streams. Ted, I'm thinking about canceling Wednesday night live that night so I can come and see you in Saginaw.
Mike, when we play the Fred Bear song, nobody's feet touch the ground. It is mystical celebrating that great man. And once again, thank you for celebrating that great man because he is a power force in our lives even after 35 years passing. What a great man, and thank you, everybody, for making that the number one song in the history of Michigan. How powerful is that?
Well, maybe we will see you in Saginaw on that night. And, Ted, it's always a pleasure to talk. I would encourage people to check out your website, tednugent.com, tednugent.com. Keep up the good work, and you and I will stay in touch.
Thank you, Mike. Godspeed. God bless real Michiganians.
Ted Nugent, tednugent.com. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, a few more things I got to talk about. And then we're going to wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. What's he got this week? Small game? Big game? Fish? Probably fish. We'll find out coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across our great state of Michigan, including WHTC in Holland. That's 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. And also St. Joe, WSJM 94.9 FM. And, of course, in Saginaw, WSGW 790 AM 100.5 FM. I am in the studios of WSGW right now. I'm in here with young Jonathan Dent. Now, he's not really that young, but he's a lot younger than I am, so I call him young Jonathan Dent. A force to be reckoned with in Michigan broadcasting. You will hear that name a lot, I promise you that. But the one thing John doesn't have, he doesn't have the crowds in the parking lot that Charlie Rude does. And actually, John, they did not know you were doing the show today. And if you look out there right now, there's a couple of cars right now, and they've got families, and there's a couple of babies, and they were expecting Charlie, but they got Jonathan Dent. So both of these guys do a great job in helping me out, and I appreciate it so very, very much. I couldn't do this show on my own. There's no doubt about that. Well, I could, but it wouldn't be the quality that I want it to be. Hey, what did you think of the conversation with Uncle Ted? I'll be completely honest. I would tell Ted this if he was still on the air. I always am a bit hesitant to go into those conversations because sometimes Uncle Ted can be a lot. Well, he's always a lot, right? But I get it. When you talk to the guy in a private one-on-one conversation, he will tell you the reason I have to be this way is I have a mission. I have a goal, and I have to set myself apart. This is Nugent talking, not Avery. I have to set myself apart to get the attention on me that I need to push for the things that I want to push for, and that is pro-gun and pro-hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping. And, man, I got to respect that. I do respect that. And you know, as Justin Tomei from MUCC was telling us in an earlier hour, there are two forces in the world, Steve Rinella, meat eater, and Ted Nugent, that have probably done more to promote hunting than anybody. So I do have to respect that. I will Ted Nugent and I go back quite a ways. The first TV show that Ted ever did that was going to be a hunting show, and this was just a pilot, it never really got off the ground, I co-hosted and produced that show. I still have it somewhere, and I keep threatening to put this up on YouTube if I can ever find it. This was just a concept way, way, way back. Now, obviously, it was a good concept because Ted took his Spirit of the Wild and it became the most popular show on, I think, Sportsman Channel or Pursuit or wherever it's at these days. I almost left TV5 that I was working at the time. I almost left TV5 to go to work with Nugent in producing that show. Now, in hindsight, it was a darn good move that I didn't do it because I think it worked out pretty well for Ted, and I think it worked out pretty well for me as well. But I've always had a lot of respect for the guy. I really do. The things that he does, the passion that he has, you have to respect that. Whether you like the guy or not, and I do like the guy, you have to respect passion. And I've always said that. I respect passion. I don't have to agree with somebody, but I can certainly respect your passion. I appreciate passion. I appreciate conviction. And that's what I see in Uncle Ted. Okay. So a couple of other things. I hope you are having a wonderful 4th of July weekend. Summertime is just flying by, but there's still time to get involved in a couple of things. Number one being the second annual Mike Avery Outdoors charity golf outing, and that is to benefit MUCC's youth camp. You know, Ted Nugent's got his camp for kids, which has been 36 years now, and they've helped how many hundreds of kids along the way? Well, MUCC has their youth camp, and I want to help that youth camp by raising funds, and that's what this golf outing is for, getting kids involved in the outdoors. The MUCC youth camp has not just kids who come from families who are already part of the outdoor lifestyle, the outdoor way of life, you know, hunting and fishing families. Here's the thing I'm really excited about. The youth camp also invites and has kids come in there who have, say, never seen stars before. And honestly, the first time the guys at MUCC told me that, I thought you're stretching the truth here. You're telling me the story. They said, no, a story. No. They said, we've had inner city kids come in here, or all they have seen in the past is they look at the sky and they see light pollution and they don't see much up there. When they come out to the youth camp and they see these bright, vibrant stars, they're in awe. And I thought, man, to be involved in a quest like that to get kids involved in the outdoors, it's wonderful. So go to the website, mucc.org/golf. If you would like to join us in playing in that event, and also if you want to sponsor in some way, if you want to donate a prize or a product we can raffle off to raise money, or if you just want to make a cash donation, hey, we'll take it. mucc.org/golf, mucc.org/golf. I have a goal in mind. I'm not going to tell you what that number is, but I have a goal in mind, and I think we can reach it, but we need your help. MUCC.org/golf. What else? Okay, we'll take a break here. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar coming up right here in Outdoor Magazine. I think probably another fish recipe, but we'll see what's on Dave's mind. Always enjoy talking with him. He's a good guy. Known him for a long time, have much respect. My name is Mike Avery. This show is called Outdoor Magazine. The website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I would love to hear from you. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. Again, my name is Mike Avery. So glad to have you along with us. I am a lucky guy. I am blessed by God. I admit this. I love what I'm doing. I still have passion for what I'm doing. And think about this. In 1 hour, I got the opportunity to talk with Ted Nugent and Dixie Dave Minar. How much better can a morning get than talking with those two icons in the outdoors in Michigan? David, welcome back, buddy. How are you?
Really good, Michael. Hey, thanks for the kind words.
Ted Nugent and Dixie Dave Minar, two names that are known throughout this state of Michigan.
How's Mr. Nugent doing?
You know, he's doing really well. I had him on the show to talk about, his statements in Lansing last week, and he can be a very volatile guy, but we had a really nice, down-to-earth conversation. I have much respect for the guy, as I do for you, Dave. I have an awful lot of respect for you. I appreciate your friendship, and I look forward to talking to you every week.
Well, thank you, Mike. I look forward to being on the radio show with you every week, too.
I appreciate that. What do you have for us this week, buddy?
You been fishing, Mike?
Don't talk. Actually, yes. I was going to say, don't talk to me. No, I was out last week with Brad Dupuis, Mr. Angler Quest, on his Angler Quest. And, man, we got a ton of fish. So, yes, I have been fishing. Not as much as I want to, but that's going to change very soon.
Good. Well, we got a fish chowder recipe. We used to sell this at the restaurant, Oscar and Joey's. It was a big seller. It was a huge hit all the time. And so you're going to need either lake trout or salmon, or one of the other underutilized fish for sheephead would be just the most excellent for this dish, because it's nice and firm and it would hold up together without breaking up too much.
Yeah.
So you need about 2 pounds or so of fish fillet, boneless, skinless, 2 medium onions, 3 stalks of celery, 3/4 of a pound of smoked bacon, 3/4 of a pound of butter, 3/4 of a gallon of whole milk, 5 or 6 potatoes peeled and diced fairly small. Put them on the side. Dash of white pepper, flour, and some to make the roux with, because you're going to thicken this up. It's kind of a little bit of a more in-depth recipe. So, but what you want to do is take about 2 pounds of firm fish diced into small cubes. Boil the carcasses for about 15 minutes. Let it cool down, and then save the meat, whatever's left on the bones, to go into the soup, and then strain the stock through a hair fine sieve to remove any bones or scales. And then you can use this stock, half milk and half stock. So you're going to grind the onions, celery, and bacon into a really nice, big, large, heavy bottom saucepan that you own. Add the butter and simmer for about 10 minutes until it's tender. Reduce the heat to almost nothing, because when you add the flour, you don't want this to be sticking too much. So the roux should be very thick, almost mashed potato-like. And then when you stir in this warm mixture of stock and milk, it's going to thin that down, and it should be a nice thickness for the chowder. So when the roux has been cooking for about 10 minutes, add the hot stock / milk with a wire whisk. Whip it together and so it's very smooth and thick, and add the black or white pepper. And then you can add any of the two, reduce this down to a nice simmer, cook it for just a few minutes more, maybe 8 to 10 minutes more. Add the potatoes and cook them until they're tender. And then the very last, you want to add the cubed fish. And you want to gently cook it and gently stir it. It only takes about 4 or 5 minutes for the fish to cook through. So you don't want to break it up too much. And this is a great dish. I'm saying we sold so much of this. Every time we had a catering and we had some salmon or something left over, we would make fish chowder and people would ask for it by name.
Oh,
they
yeah.
loved it.
I love fish chowder, and I'm thinking, man, I think you could put any fish that you would catch in Michigan, you could put in a chowder, and it would be great.
Except for I wouldn't do perch. Perch would not be one of my favorites.
Now, why is that, Dave? Because it's just too delicate, too nice?
Yep. Too delicate and too small, and it would fall apart and cook down to nothing because the fish is so flaky and flavorful.
I got you. But walleye, I mean, we've done a lot of walleye chowder. So this would actually be a great recipe for the bigger fillets, right? The ones that might be a little stronger. Put them in the walleye chowder.
Exactly. Especially up near the head where it's a little thicker, you can make real nice cubes out of the meat.
Perfect.
And then just don't overstir it when you're heating it back up after you put the fish in. You don't want to break it up too much. And I say sheephead is probably the most firm fish that you're going to use. I'd save them from trolling for walleyes.
Can sheephead? You got my attention here because so many people throw the sheephead back, myself included. But they're a great fighting fish. Can we do a sheephead recipe next week?
Yeah, we can, definitely.
All right, let's do sheephead. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. All right, buddy, I'll look forward to that sheephead recipe. Listen, it won't be the wildest thing Dave has ever cooked for me because he showed up here in the studio one time with Asian carp. And I was forced to eat that because he showed up here. Don't do that again, Dave. I mean, it wasn't bad. But if you don't show up again with Asian carp, I'll be okay with that. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, great guy, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, as are you. If you weren't listening, there'd be no reason to do this show, and I don't know what I would do. My name is Mike Avery. This show is called Outdoor Magazine. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com.